Today, I'm going to show you how you can make an app that could make you, I don't know, hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of dollars, and why right now you should keep that app to yourself. Hi, everybody. My name is Pete. Welcome to the podcast. If you're a Gen X white collar worker who suddenly feels like their career path is heading in directions they didn't anticipate, well, you've come to the right place. Welcome home. Today, we're going to talk about how easy it's become to build apps. Well, mostly easy, and that there's possibilities for you to make that available for others to purchase, but why a lot of people, smart people, are actually building apps and not showing them to anyone. And we're going to find out why. So, a few episodes ago, I was trying to have AI assist us, Gen Xers, on how to organize all the AI solutions that are out there. Because one of the goals of this podcast is to inform you so that you know which AI application you should invest your time in so that it could set you up either to keep your current job or maybe get a future job that you really want or whatever you want to do. Maybe start your own company. And AI is part of our technical future. I've mentioned this before. So it's really important that our generation become experts in it because of our experience in business and having started our jobs before the internet. We are more capable of technological change than any generation that's come before us and probably after us. So it's a great opportunity for us to take all that experience and knowledge, apply it to the latest tech of AI, and then see where that takes us. Now, one of the challenges I had, and I think I mentioned it on the podcast, was that whatever organization I come up with the help of AI of organizing these different AI solutions into groups that may help you decide which one to invest your time or money in. But I knew the challenge with that is that it was a static opportunity, right? That was at the moment. At the moment when I created and shot that episode was the moment in time that captured those AI solutions. And of course, AI is ever evolving, changing, growing. So I wanted to figure out a way to create a solution, an application that we could use to put in the criteria of what we talked about in that podcast and then have it search the web right now, search what is available out there right now, and then give us a synopsis of the solutions that would fit the criteria we put in. And that way we can compare, we could see which applications kind of fit our needs, maybe our budgets or the areas of focus we really want to go into, and every time you run that app, maybe a week later, it could be different depending on how AI has evolved and shifted over time. So I was really excited about that idea. And I'd heard that there's some really simple ways to create an application and then make it available to others. So I went about doing that. And I will say that making the application was really, really easy. And I'll be honest, it's exceptionally cool. Because I'm not a coder, I can't do any of that. But the fact that the technology exists where you can just type in a prompt and it can develop code that then shows you the app, that is crazy. It's insane that this technology exists. But there were challenges after that, which I'll talk about, that can maybe dissuade some people from trying, but I don't want you to do that. I found some, I don't know, I don't want to say shortcuts, but a more direct route from creating an application and then making it available to people. But that direct route, I mean, I don't know what I don't know. So we'll see if that direct route in the long term is the right long term solution, or if it was just the quickest solution to get done what I wanted to get done. And that may not be bad in and of itself. But we'll get into that later. Let's get started with creating an app. So, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to the Google AI Studio, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes. Now, on the left menu, at least now at the time of recording, it shows build, and this is what we're going to do. This is the build section of the AI Studio. And you have start, and then it has gallery, which will show some options other people have made. Then you have your apps, which is any app you develop in here, even if it's in process, it's not finished, you can find under your apps. And then, of course, there's an FAQ. So, what you would do is you would go into this describe your idea. And the amazing thing about this tech is literally that's all you need to do. You just need to describe your idea. And then the coding, the tool does the rest. It codes it up and spits it out, and then you tweak it. But when you're describing your tool, take some time to really formulate exactly what you want this tool to do. The more specific, the better in this case. You can always make iterational changes afterwards, so that's fine. But in the beginning, you don't want to waste a lot of time trying to get it to understand what you really want. So be as specific and detailed as possible, just speaking in just normal language. It doesn't have to be code speak or anything like that. And that way, it will have a better idea of what you're trying to achieve and therefore output something that's closer to the end state that you want it to be in. So this is how I described what I wanted my tool for us to use so that we could, find out which AI apps we should invest our time in. So here's what I said. I said the purpose of this tool is for people, specifically Gen X white collar workers, but it could be anyone, to help them find which current AI tool or tools they should learn to help them retain employment or gain new employment. So that top part kind of gives context about why you want the tool to exist. And now the second part are the specifics I want in the tool to meet that requirement of why it exists, if that makes sense. So then I said, by entering their job responsibilities, skills, hobbies, preferences, the tool would search for available AI solutions and give them the top AI options, which they should learn to use to expand their skill set. The output would tell them the various options for each AI tool, like is it free to use or does it cost money? And if it does, is it payment through tokens or credits? Is it per output or is it some sort of monthly or annual subscription? And it should also indicate if the AI solutions are industry specific. Anything that they would need to make a decision on which AI tool to invest their time learning. So that's what I wrote to describe the tool I wanted built. So then you just kind of hit enter and the magic happens. It's crazy. So I believe this is Python code. I'm not a coder. I don't know, but I think it is. And so it's going through, and on the left hand side, it's checking off what it's doing to facilitate the tool that you wanted. And the fact that it's doing that is just like it's cool. I wish I knew enough to know how cool it is that what they're doing, but I don't. And that's the beauty of this tech, right? I'm not a coder. I just gave it an idea and as much information about that idea as I could. And here it is, just coding away. This is the amazing stuff about AI. Now, there's also the downside. Oh, it's done. There's also the downside is that this can impact the ability for coders to keep work. However, we did talk in a previous podcast about that really the best scenario right now is for like coders to use this kind of process to do a first draft and maybe just do some tweaks in here, but they're going to go in and actually review it and make sure it's robust enough and in line with the business strategies and whatever cybersecurity or any other requirements for that business to make sure this tool meets that business requirement. But what a easy first step. Talk about the 80/20 rule. That 80% just went by like that, right? So, all right, so here's how it structured it. Again, I didn't tell it what to say or how to describe itself on the screen, so this is kind of cool. It's called the AI Tool Finder. Okay. And it came up with this little blurb, which is stay ahead of the curve, enter your professional profile to discover the best AI tools to secure your career future. And that's awesome. It took what I had given it in the description and put it into like two little sentences. It's like good marketing. All right. So in the beginning, up top, you'll see that it has a place for your job responsibilities. And then below that are your specific skills. So like what applications do you work with to do your job, right? Do you have any certifications, things like that? Another thing here is hobbies and interests. And I got to tell you, I thought about this because one of the best bosses I ever had was a woman who took her time to really get to know the team. And she loved to host like parties at her house, not like drinking parties, but she loved to cook. And so she would cook these great, amazing meals for the team. And it was so awesome. And we just got to hang out and get to know each other outside of the office. And it was really profitable for everyone. Not only did it, build us closer as a team, but what was really amazing is that she started to find out what each of us was really, really interested in, like outside of work. And what was amazing is that if she could apply what you're really interested in outside of work to your job, then you would be more excited about doing your job, right? Because one of my other bosses, a really good boss I had previously, one of the smartest things she ever said to me is that there's parts of your job you like and there's parts of your job that you don't like, but they're all your responsibility. Because there are times you're like, I don't want to do that part of my job. It's like, I don't have a choice. It's my responsibility. So the fact that this other boss, this really great boss, was able to take anything that she could about it from our personal likes and wants and put it into our job made what we like about our job even that much more powerful. One of the things that my boss had found out about me is that I used to work at Nickelodeon Studios, as I'd mentioned before, and I'd been involved in video and making and shooting videos and things like that. And at the time, the company was really growing, and it had a very unique, very powerful culture, but it was different than a lot of other businesses that you would come across. And so she asked me to make some videos for new employees so that they could understand how it worked. Because if you understood how this company worked, if you could do it, you could stay there forever and succeed. And if you couldn't do it, honestly, you didn't last 6 months. It's just it was very like we were very customer focused, and so there was often a lot of changing priorities in a good way, not in a dysfunctional way, but like we're making things better. And if people couldn't manage that sort of variation, they would burn out in 6 months. But the people that could, who loved that sort of variation or could at least manage it, man, they just excelled and stayed there. I stayed there for over 20 years. So so that's why in this section, I think it's important to put our hobbies and interests, because if that can overlap with the job responsibilities and the skills, if AI can find something there that can overlap with that, then whatever job you're searching for or whatever AI tool you're working with, it gives you a better chance of marrying those two together. And I think that's pretty cool. And then also at the bottom is just preferences, just what do you prefer? And these aren't like structured. You just write whatever you want. It's a smart tool. It'll figure it out. Now, at the bottom, it says find my AI tools. That's pretty cool. And then it says, welcome to your AI career copilot. This tool is designed to help you find the right AI technologies to supercharge your career. I love this. It's all this marketing speak I didn't have to come up with. Simply fill out the form above to get started. Many directions with a little oomph to them. I like it. So I've entered some things here, and now I'm just going to do a test run. So I've entered some items in each of the areas, and then I click the button and now it's analyzing. So it says, here's your recommended AI tools, and it lists them here. So it's saying ChatGPT because it's a large language model that can generate human-like text, and it tells you what it is, and then it also shows you why it's a match for you. How cool is that? And then it continues to go down. It shows Lucid Chart as one option. It also has Adobe Firefly and Descript. So I put in a lot of video heavy stuff in this description. That's why it's pointing me to more creative things. Again, I wanted to test it out. Now, I like it. It's an amazing start, but now this is where we get to iterate, right? Play around, make it more our own. So I thought it was important that when you put in your job responsibilities or skills, those two more so than the others, I think we should be able to prioritize them, right? Because you're just going to enter the ones as they come to mind. So it doesn't need to be like, I don't know, just a text box, but maybe like things that you can shift around so you can prioritize it. So the application knows what you value more out of all the things that you're entering. I don't think I need to do that with the hobbies and interests, but I think the top two jobs, responsibilities, and skills, I think that's the right place to do it. So then I told the computer, I said, when entering their skills and responsibilities, can we have the user put them in order of importance with their ability to move around to reorder, right? So you can just play around and make your decision. So let's see what it does. All right, it's going to design flexible inputs, it's saying, refining components, constructing list interface. It's just crazy. It's cool. Just got to say that this is cool. And it's again, every I say this so much with this AI stuff, but it's only going to get better. Not crazy. All right. All right. So now it's showing you a checkbox of all the changes that it made. That's so cool. I'm sure if you were a coder, as I mentioned before, this would mean more to you. So if you're a coder, you could probably figure out, did this think the right way? Did it go down the right path as I would as a coder? And so if you could probably see early on that maybe it went in a direction you wouldn't, doesn't mean it's wrong, but at least you would be able to know how it thought about solving that request and whether you or maybe the company would do it differently. So I'm sure that's really valuable for coders. Okay, so now it has these options for prioritizing. So I'm going to enter some things here: content creation, executive level presentation. These are things that I do right now. Turning complex technical information into easily understandable content for strategic, functional, and technical audiences. I do a lot of that. And let's see, what else should I write in here? So I'm going to add some more things that I currently do. This is more accurate. Now I'm going to add some tools, and I'm going to add some hobbies and interests and some preferences. And then as it analyzes, it gives me an updated list. Again, this list is different than the other one, so it's not an apples to apples comparison, but it says ChatGPT, Grammarly, Canva with AI features, Quillbot. So those are the four options. Website, which is cool. I'm going to reorder these now and then run it again and see if it gives me different output. All right. So I just reorder these. So it shows you everything here. See, it's different. Canva's in there still, but it also has Miro AI. I'm not even familiar with that one. Canva again. All right. Awesome. Okay. So it works. Like functionally, it works. But I think it could be better. First off, I don't like the color scheme. So let's see. I say works great. Let's update the look and feel. Can we make the background white with the highlights dark red with a white font? That's more in line with the old guy and AI sort of situation. And can we make the font Vogue? That's the one I use. And can you include the attached logo? Because I want this to be branded with, my logo. So I uploaded that and it thinks, well, it didn't do the logo correctly, which is the main thing I really want at this point. I want to make sure it's branded. So I said it didn't work. Try again. I can upload a different tool. So let's see what it did. It made the change the, oh, that's cool. The font is better. The AI tool finder for professionals. I like that addition then change. Yes, that's good. Still could not get the old guy in AI thing to work. I tried to upload a different version. It still didn't work. And I figured I would just do this later. I love the fact that it agrees with you when it makes a mistake. I like, hey, the picture's right there. Now you're right, it's not there. That can be frustrating. Well, thanks. Why don't you just do it right? I mean, come on. It reminds me of that joke. I think it was Louis C.K. who said has a joke about when Wi-Fi was first available on airplanes. And people didn't even know it existed, and then they get on a plane and like, oh, this is available. And then if it had any trouble connecting, people were suddenly irritated with this something they didn't even know existed 5 minutes ago. And Louis C.K. is like, look, you're in a tube in the sky, you know. Like, why don't you appreciate where you are? So I'm going to appreciate where we are. AI, it made this tool. There's just some tweaks I'd like to make. Now, I did more work on this, and unfortunately, I don't think I recorded it, so I can't show you. But basically, at the end, I wanted it to be able to where you could select which apps out of the ones it shows to compare, so you could actually do a comparison side by side, which would be easier, and also that it would output that as a PDF. Now, what's interesting, no matter how many times that I tried to get it to do that, it would do it visually, and it would do it in a PDF, fine. But if it was more than three of the solutions, if you wanted it to compare more than three, whenever you output it into a PDF, it never figured out how to format that so you could see all of them. You could still only see three and a little bit of the fourth one and none of the fifth one if you selected that. So eventually I just need to say pick three. I haven't done that yet. So that's pretty amazing, right? So we have this amazing tool that took us just a few minutes to make. I mean, I sped up some of the process, but right? I mean, amazing. So now you have this app. What do you do with it? What do you do with it? Well, before we go there, I want to read you this article because this is this is so relevant to this and kind of something else I'm doing. I'm working with my niece. She's an entrepreneur and she has her own business, and she does amazing work, but it's a small shop, so she's very busy. And so we were talking about AI, and I want to learn how to do more of this. So the next thing after this would be agentic AI. Agentic AI is that, I don't know if you've ever used a business process modeler, but it basically is like, you map out what the business process is. Let's say it's a simple approval process. Okay. Like, for example, I have an expense report. It needs to go to my manager, and they need to approve it. And when it's approved, then that expense report is then mailed to accounting. But if my manager doesn't reply within 48 hours, it then goes to her boss. And if they don't reply within 48 hours, it goes to their boss until eventually someone will approve it or reject it. And then if it's rejected, it comes back to me. And if it's approved, it goes to accounting. So that's a simple way that you could set up a process modeler, and it does some of those really basic functions like it keeps track of the amount of time that this request has been waiting for an approval or rejection or denial. And if nothing happens, then it automatically forwards it. So it has some properties where it can use an application, but it's very, very limited. Well, agentic AI is just kind of like that, except some of those steps can be far more advanced and complex. So you're basically creating an AI agent, or basically a virtual person, to do some of those tasks. And so all the variations that a person could do doing these tasks can be applied to these agents, these AI agents. And I'm going to learn more about that. And when I do, I'm going to share it with you. But I was talking to my niece about um, AI agents and creating some agentic solutions for her. And so we're going to work on that together. And the way I proposed it, I said, listen, what's low hanging fruit? What's something that's kind of a pain in the butt that you wish was easier, but you just don't invest the time? Well, let's do that. Let's make an agentic solution for that. And the other thing I asked her is, what is the most painful thing that you do when you do your job? And let's try to make an agentic solution for that. And the end result would be is that she would have a suite of tools that she uses to do her job that she could then make available to her customers, that they could subscribe to, where they could basically get an agentic version of her doing specific tasks that she does for them, except they could do like a subset of those tasks for themselves or all of those tasks for themselves. And that would help these smaller businesses that don't have a lot of staff or can't afford a lot of staff, but they may be able to afford, I don't know, $100 a month or whatever it could be, for access to my niece's knowledge and skill and tasks. So that's how we were going to approach these agentic solutions. And I was reminded of what Steve Jobs did with the iPhone. I don't know if you remember the iPod, right? The music thing. And I have one of these old ones. I wish I had it with me from like 2008. Still works. Gotta love Apple for that. Anyway, but what he did is he tested out the iPhone OS, the operating system, on the iPod. So any bugs that he could get from people using this interface and the way he wanted the iPhone to work, it was all done with low risk. It was just a music player. I think at some point you could play some videos or connect with YouTube or Instagram or things like that. But most people just use it as before Spotify and whatnot as their digital, you know, playlist with all the songs on there. So that was brilliant, right? Low risk to get people to beta test his OS, and then once he had done that, he then put that OS on the phone with the phone capabilities and then beta tested that. So I thought with my niece, I said, what you should do is we should create these and not sell them to anybody, but let's have you use them just to make your life easier. Right. And also, as you're using them in all these real world situations with all the different variables that come up with you interacting with different types of businesses, we'll figure out what the apps are missing, make some adjustments, and then be able to make it better, stronger, faster. And then once we get those really solidified, and then we'll ask, what's the next most painful thing you do? And then we'll make an app for that. And then she'll use that in her own suite and play around and make sure that it works right and continue down this process till we run out of like logical apps to build. So that's our plan. Haven't started it yet, but we're thinking about it. But what was so funny is I was thinking about that, and then I came across this article from Inc. magazine. It's written by Joe Procopio. I hope I got that right, Joe. So the article goes about where he has a friend who's a CTO, and he met with him, and he was talking about the CTO was telling Joe about all these apps he had developed using agentic AI, and he calls it CTO in a box. And Joe's like, "Well, that's great. Do they work?" He's like, "Yeah, they work great." He's like, "Well, when are you going to make that available? When are you going to sell it? You can retire, sell it, CTO in a box." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to sell it to anybody right now. I'm just using it to make my life easier." And one of the reasons the CTO and others are doing this is because the value of AI and how best to use it in different businesses hasn't really been proven yet. So he has these tools that work really well for him, but not everyone is bought in to AI. And I think part of that is again, it hasn't met its potential yet. They're still figuring it out. It's a new tech, gonna happen. But also I think businesses don't exactly know how to apply AI to their specific businesses. Um, I know a lot of people are trying, but I think that's one of the reasons. So I think that's what he means here by the value of AI really hasn't been substantiated yet. And that value could be literal or it just could be perceived value. Like, well, it sounds good. I just don't know how to use it for my business. So therefore, it's not valuable to me. So that term valuable can vary on meaning. So he goes on to say that this is why most of the ingenious apps actually never leave the creator's hard drive. And so what the CTO did to build his agentic solution is he said, what I did is I took every bit of data, company data, sales data, all the code, all the documentation, the stuff that they had just sitting in directories and databases. And then I slammed it into a database, wrote some code, integrated it with Claude Code, the AI solution Claude from Amazon, to build some agents and totally write the front end. And now the LLM, the large language model, is like my personal assistant. Now, this guy obviously is more technical than me and maybe you because he's doing a lot of this coding himself, but he certainly saw the value of what we just did, except at a higher level, how quick and easy it was to help him, and he knew where all the data was in his systems that he needed these agentic solutions to access. So way ahead of like me. So his friend says, I call it CTO in a box. And Joe's like, the writer's like, well, give me a copy of it. And it's like, no, no, no. It's staying on my hard drive. And Joe's like, but you built it like a product. And he's like, yeah, he did, but he wasn't ready to release it. So there's a couple of reasons why the CTO wouldn't or wasn't willing or didn't think it was a good idea to make this product available to people for purchase. And one of those is that Joe mentions that the CTO is on the uppermost subscription level of at least five different providers, five different AI solutions, a four-figure a month bill, which is paid for by the business. And he's aware that that's going to be squeezed soon. Like there's kind of like with streaming, there's so many streaming options. It's so expensive now. All these solutions just add on to each other. And that's the first thing is he doesn't know the people who would use this. They're probably doing similar things as him. It's for CTOs and he's having to spend four figures a month and who knows how much more he'll have to spend based on the future solutions. So since AI is still in a lot of flux, he's like, I'm just going to keep this in house because I'm not sure the cost that people like me or customers of mine for this tool would are currently taking in. Until the dust settles, it's a variable that he's uncertain of. And the other thing he said is that since we don't know the end state of AI, we don't know what the costs are going to be to upload a tool and make it available, right? Because there's so many players now. Like I mentioned before, like with computers first coming out, like the internet, eventually this will all settle down and there'll be two or three winners. And those winners will then absorb the technology or the companies of all the other players, or just make competitive tool sets that will put them out of business. And then the playing field will settle. The pricing structures within that will be known, what the market can bear in using AI tools and what that price range is for different levels of AI access will be better defined. So if he were to create this tool and let's say it's a monthly subscription, right? And he makes it, I don't know, 20 bucks a month, just making something up and probably worth a lot more than that. But let's say it's 20 bucks a month. Well, then, what if like as things change, what if the cost of him making it available shifts and it's almost 20 bucks a month or more than 20 bucks a month for whatever reason? So those are the two reasons he decided to keep it in house and just use it for himself, which is a really good idea for his own personal use. Like where you and I and the tool I created is really to narrow down where to invest our time. But if you're a CTO, you need to be aware of the entire landscape and know how it works. So he has to invest more time and energy. So people in that space that would use his tool are already spending a lot of money just keeping track of what's out there. And then if the whole pricing structure of how the marketplace will tolerate how much things cost and how much, like, I don't know, Claude or some sort of cloud sharing option where you would put your app, those prices are really cheap right now because everyone wants you on them. But once that settles down, there's less competition. Those prices will probably go up. So you got to make sure that you price your app correctly to your consumers. And you don't know what your costs are, so you can't do that. And then you also don't know what the customers will expect in the AI space for certain levels of applications. So, did you make a 99-cent app or did you make a $199 app a month? None of that's known yet. So that's why he didn't share it. And I thought that was an interesting idea. And once the AI landscape settles down, gets better defined, he'll know whether he should make that available to others. Now, I wanted to make this available to my tool, not his, my tool. I wanted to make available to you guys. So the next phase of this effort is I now have to deploy it somewhere. And that was a bit more of a struggle. And again, if you're a Gen Xer, we've been through this before. So when there's new tech and new opportunity, like obviously creating code from a description was a quick fix. And what that allows, which is great, is non coders like me to get something coded, right? But managing the app still requires a lot of code knowledge because it was asking me to do things I had no idea what the heck it was asking me. So I looked up on Google's AI Studio and I said, all right, so what do I do now? I have this. And it says, well, you should set up a Google account. You should install Docker, which is a application that you would then install onto your computer, which then you would take certain code that it gives you and update the code that the tool provided and you apply this so it could work better with other apps. And if you're going to, let's say, if this is for mine's web based, this app, but if you were going to make an app for a phone, is it an iOS phone? Is it a Mac phone or is it an Android? And then that there are criteria that apps have to meet for them to be able to be put on their stores. So then you'd have to make one for Apple and one for Android and change the code. And so here we are now changing code. And I don't know anything about that. So I got to tell you, I kind of stopped. My brain went, I don't know what to do. It was like so many options and I didn't really have any experience. And my brain just went, doo. And so I looked it up and I researched. I went online. I looked at a whole bunch of YouTube videos about this. And again, this is for coders, you know, like this whole space is for coders. They've just made this first step for non coders as well. But all the other steps are still for coders, of which I am not. So I thought, okay, I even installed Docker on my computer, but I didn't know how to edit code, you know? And I'm at the point where it's like I'm trying to make a free tool for the people in my school, community. That's what I'm trying to make that for. Trying to be a good guy here. But I'm not going to go learn Python code and how to manage code just to do that. I don't have the time for that. So I just said, you know what? This tool has up in the top right hand corner, it has a deploy option. Well, that sounds like they've thought ahead of something. So I went up and said, let's deploy this. And what it said is that you need a Google Cloud account, and then we can deploy it on the Google Cloud. You can download the app to your desktop or your computer. So you should do that anyway. You should have your own version of it. Whenever you make changes, you should download that latest version because you don't want to rely solely on Gemini to keep it there. So I did that. So I had to set up a Google Cloud account. So I have a Google email address which I was using. So you have to set up an account. You set up payment information, and you can do a free trial, which you should do, and then you create your first project, and then you upload your app to that project. And then what it does is that it tracks usage by like CPU power or something like that. Basically, how much usage, how much effort is it taking every time someone runs that app? And then it will charge you over time for the usage, for bandwidth. I don't want to say bandwidth because that's a specific type of usage, but basically the usage of their cloud system. This is a very simple app, and and so it shouldn't cost a lot to run. It doesn't. It just goes out and searches at the end, and it's just a simple search for what's out there on the web at the time. So I don't think it should cost a lot. But as I'm setting these things up, there's things like that you'll need to understand, which are APIs, and APIs are for my application to connect with the cloud. It's stored on the cloud, but has to connect to the cloud system. And then it also has to connect to other things to go out and search the internet for the latest information on AI apps. So those connectors are called APIs, and that's an application programming interface. So that's just an application interface from one app to another, and it'll do it for you. It creates the API for your app, and then if like you don't need to use Google Cloud. So using Google Cloud, it just takes all that information up to its own system and says, "I'll put your API in there for you." But you could save this app on a lot of different similar solutions like Google Cloud. And so in that case, you would need to know what your API is and then paste that code. It's basically numbers and letters. You paste that into the API field at some other hosting platform, and then it'll make that connection. But since I'm creating in Google Gemini and saving to the Google Cloud, it's automatically just bringing that stuff up with it. So once you set up an account, as I mentioned, you import your project, you give it a name, you set up your billing. You have to make sure the billing is set up because you're going to have to pay for usage. And one of the things I really like that you could do is you create a budget alert. You can't say stop making it available if it reaches a certain budget, but it'll let you know if it's getting to an amount that you care about. So I set it at 25 bucks because this application shouldn't take a lot of time and effort on this cloud service. But however they calculate it, it's very, very cheap per time. So if I get to 25 bucks, that means it has been run a lot. But if it's running amok, I don't want to suddenly get a bill for $1,000 for a tool that is somehow not functioning correctly or is being misused. So I set my budget alert at 25 bucks. So it'll email me when enough usage reaches or nears that amount. And then I can go in and I think I can eventually deactivate the app if I need to. So the app won't stop when it reaches a budget level, but you'll be notified of that budget level. And then you can decide whether you want to keep the app active and available for people to access or deactivate it or pause it for a period of time or get rid of it forever. It's up to you. But at least you have those options. And I just want to share that with you. So now that it was done, it was up and running, I needed to do a test. So I entered information on the actual tool, and then I reorganized, reprioritized items. I put in hobbies and interests and preferences. It ran, and it also has these little check boxes where you can compare. It doesn't say compare. I need to add that. But there's these check boxes. And then if you check by, oh, and it has my logo on the bottom. I got that fixed. To solve that problem, I actually had to upload my this picture to a website that I have and not publish it on the website, but it's if you know the URL, you could bring up the picture. And then I told the app that's where the picture is, place the logo there. It would not, as I tried previously, take a logo from me, upload it to itself, and then make it part of the app that it then uploads to the cloud. That's where it didn't work. Lessons learned. But anyway, so I will say it was kind of painful. The second part, creating the app was insanely easy, like unnecessarily easy. It was so easy. But what happened afterwards is a perfect example of what happens when these things are in flux, right? This technology is in flux. This tool is designed for coders, it's designed to help them code faster, but it's so easy to make an app just by writing text that anyone can use it. But then the following steps have not been made idiot proof or newbie proof, like for me. I just uploaded it directly to Google Cloud. I don't know if that's the right long term solution, but it works for now. And so, if you sign up to be on my Skool community, the link is down below. I will send you the link to this app and you can run it for free. And then you can find out which AI solutions you should use. So give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Let's build that Skool community. I really want it to be a home for Gen Xers who want to learn AI and also a place just for us to get together and problem solve this new world order of technology and how it applies to us, our jobs, our lives, advocate for each other, help each other, network with each other. So if you can, please join the community. I would really, really appreciate it. It is also free. So stop by, sign up, get a link to this bad boy, find out where it thinks you should be spending your time with AI. So thank you so much for joining me here today on the podcast. It means so much to me. It really does. I really believe that Gen X is the right generation for AI. Combining our knowledge and experience with that tech makes us unstoppable. And I really want us to change the narrative about Gen X's value in the workplace because one day I hope we're the AI leaders they turn to solve their problems. All right, I'll see you guys next time.